Hi guys, it's Robbo here and welcome back to another Ark Survival Evolved tutorial video. This one's going to be specifically for generators and cable placement. I've been asked, well, only once in the comments, but I've been asked by a couple of people. Now, this is going to be very basic. I'm not doing an advanced tutorial. I've got a few things set up here just to give you some examples. So first off, we're going to talk about the actual size of the cables. As you can see here, I've got one foundation. So basically, your horizontal cable is the width of one foundation and also same as your intersection. So if you apply that when you're building your base, basically one intersection and one horizontal cable are going to cover one foundation. So right there, that's probably the first thing that people don't understand is if you wanted to go right from one side to the other here with cable, you're gonna just be touching on both edges. Alright, now this does not apply to the vertical cable. I'm not going to mention the incline cable yet. I'm going to do a special section for it in a minute. Vertical cable is actually much higher. It's not quite 2 walls high, but it's pretty close, and I'll show you here in a second. First off though, I'm going to talk about method 1 of generator placement. Now, for me this is probably the best method, is I'll always place my generator in a single box. They fit in a 1x1 room and make your room too high, and I'll show you why. So this is going to be my generator room for this tutorial. So I'll get my generator roughly lined up in the middle, place it. Okay, so there we go. We've got our generator in, it's not sticking out the wall. We can have a quick fly over top. Yeah, it's not close to the back wall. Now, cable placement off the generator is probably the most essential part. For this method, I use vertical, and for the second method I show you, I'll use horizontal. So we'll start off, we'll place one vertical cable. Now, you can see it there before I've actually placed it, and it looks like it's coming out the top of the generator, but what you actually don't see is that that's actually snapped to the bottom point. Now, I'll show you how I know that. I'll place that. So, we've got all these markings up here. Basically, these are all, apart from the first 1x1x2 high box, all of these ceilings are one apart. So, I'm going to do some measurements and show you how high your base can be going straight up to have your cables in the best position. Because these cables aren't actually too high. They're a bit of an awkward height. But just to give you an example of how high they are. So we'll place one vertical cable off the side, and horizontal cable. I'll place another vertical cable. So you can see how I can tell that that vertical cable is locked into the bottom because they're the same height, and you can see what I mean. They're not the height of 2 walls. So now we'll start going upwards, and I'll show you what I mean. So at this point, our base is 2 high. We're going to go up to 4 high and have a look at how our vertical placement sits. So that's 3 high, that's 4 high. Well, you can see there we're in the roof, but we're not, we're probably halfway up. We're not quite to the roof, so we'll keep going up. We'll go up again, another one. See, now we're too low. Now we're too low. So at this point here, we've gone up 2, 3, 4, 5 stories. So if we put one more cable in, and you're making all your levels too high, if we put one more cable in, we're going to be well and truly through the 6th level. But we'll place it and we'll have a look at where we stand. So we're through the 6th, but we're into the 7th. And you can see we're on that margin in the 7th where anything we place underneath here is going to be well hidden. You're not going to be able to see it. It's not going to poke through the roof. So this is quite a good height for your base, although 7's a bit of an uneven number. You don't really want to be going up. Personally, all my levels are too high, at least. They're in multiples of 2 anyway, so they'll either be 2 high or 4 high. I don't have 3s and 1s generally, except for over top of my safe, which I can get in 3 high if I drop it on the ground. So we're at 7 high, which maybe you think, well, I've got a partition in my roof. I've got a double roof so I can hide all my cables, which is, that's perfectly fine. But let's keep going up and see where we can get this into an even number. So we've got 7, we've got 8, 9. You can see it's dropped a little bit from our 7th layer. We'll keep going up when I can press the right button. We're up to 10 and 11. Keep going up. 12, 13. I might be counting wrong here, and that should be 14 there, I think. Let's go back down to the bottom here and count. I may be counting incorrectly. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So as you can see, at 14 high, if our base is 14 high, once again we hit that sweet spot just inside the roof, so that all our cables are going to be hidden. Now, this is just to give you an example of going vertically. It's part of the method that I use. Mind you, I don't build bases 14 high or 7 high, but I'll show you how I get my cables up into the roof shortly. The last thing you want to be doing is placing your, with this method, basically, is placing your generator and then placing your cables. Because it won't work. It will not work. You'll find, as you can see, your cables are always going to be going up in the middles of rooms or in the middle of walls, no matter which way you go. So method 2, I will just quickly cut this video. I'm going to tear all this down and I will show you method 2 for placing a generator so your cables run up the walls cleanly. Alright, we're back. Now this is method 2 of setting up a generator so you can get the wires running cleanly up walls. Now, once you apply this to one wall in your base, you should be able to get them running cleanly up every single wall in your base. This method starts like this. It doesn't matter where in your base you put this, but you have to start in a corner, preferably, at least up against one wall, and it has to be an internal wall, not an external wall. Otherwise, you'll run into trouble with wires sticking out. So, you can do this with a normal horizontal cable like that, but I tend to always do it with an intersection, and I'll show you why. So using the method that I showed you to start with, just the idea that I showed you to start with, we're going to run the cable just so it fits perfectly into the foundation. Should be just the same size of the foundation. It may look like it's slightly bigger, but that's because I've got the walls on the inside of this foundation here on the right hand side. I may have just misplaced that slightly, but as you can see, the walls here on the inside, if I actually take these 2 walls away here, place a couple more walls, I'll place them on the outside on the second point. If you've watched my other building videos, there's ways to do this so you can place them on the outer foundation, not the inner one. You can see that the cable is not sticking through at all. It's not sticking through there either. It may just stick through this front one, but I don't think it will. Nope, once you place it on the outside it won't. Okay, so here we go. We've got our cable placed, but we haven't got a generator. What you can actually do is place your cable to start with, and then snap your generator onto it however you want, and generally I'll snap it over top, just like that. Now, as you can see, now the generator won't fit in a 1x1 room. It'll have to be in a 1x2 room. But this is the cleanest method for getting your cables to run up walls. As you can see there, we've got the cable running up. Now, as we go vertical, the same principles apply as I just showed you. We have to go up to 7 high, or we have to go up to 14 high to get that clean run inside the base. But as you can see from the outside, we've got no cables poking through. If I actually just continue this sideways here, we should be able to just see the end of the cable there. Yep, we can just see it. Should be able to just see it out this side too. Yep, we can just see it there. So what you do basically is you put all your walls, all your cables running on your internal walls. You try not to run cables on your external walls. What you can do is, if you know you want to run cables on your external walls, say up the inside of them, like this, which that's on the outside now. This is just an example. When you're placing your intersection, you can just move it across slightly and down slightly. However, when you get over to one side, it'll stick out a lot, and the other side it won't stick out at all. But that's just one thing to bear in mind. This is probably the easiest method for getting your cables up. Just keep them on internal walls. Don't use them on external walls. This is probably the easiest method. Now I'm going to go and do a quick section just showing how to use inclines and how they actually work, because they're a little bit tricky. They're not the same height as a vertical cable, just slightly. They don't shift across one whole foundation. They're kind of a bit of an oddment, so I'm going to show you how to do them just briefly now. Now, as you can see here, I've got a diagonal, an inclined electrical cable placed. Now, looking at it, you can see it's not as long as a horizontal cable or a straight cable. It does not quite go all the way to the wall like a straight cable does. And it's also not as high as a vertical cable, which you can see there as well. Where we've got, I can't really show it to you, but you can see the vertical cable here. You can see they're not as high as each other. So the way incline cables are useful is doing this method like I showed you here with the generator. We'll put the generator in. Going to place the generator right there. It's in the middle of the base. As you can see, we can start to place towards the walls, and where that straight cable would stick through the wall, the incline cable won't. It'll come close to the wall. Now, looking at them vertically in a vertical application, as you can see, we go up here, and before we could only get to a spot where the cables were just under the roof at around I think it was 7 high and 14 high. So you can see we've got one vertical cable coming straight off the generator, and that finishes just under the roof. Now, the best part about the diagonal cables is they're nearly exactly one wall high. So we can use this in an application like this. So our base is only 4 high, we've come up one vertical cable. If we go up one more vertical cable, we're a fair way down from the roof. But if we use 2 diagonal cables, we can get very close to the roof. And this applies if we go up, say, 2 more. Put our roof up here just like this, just as a bit of an example. Now I'll actually turn, I'll have to get a couple more diagonal cables here, inclines. Probably the funniest thing I find about this is when you're in the actual engrams, and when you're spawning them in, they're called inclines, but when you go to demolish them, they're called diagonals. So that's just something to remember there, that they're the same thing. So now you can see we've got close to the roof there. However, now we've gone up another 2 levels. We actually want to, if I can get this to face the other way, which I should be able to, it's just a bit tricky sometimes. No, it's not going to on this. Will if I go downwards, but we won't do it that way. I'll just put the ceilings out here. Now, as you can see, if we keep coming up with our incline cable, we'll finish just inside the roof again. It's not perfect, they're not exactly 1 high, but they're as close as you're going to get, and this is probably the best method for getting them closer to the walls going vertically than using straight. I'd suggest using diagonals. Now, probably my 2 biggest tips is place your generator internally right in the middle of your base, as close to the center of your base as you can, next to your vault, and as protected as possible. And expect to like have to delete cables. Everyone does it. I know I have to do it quite a bit when I'm placing, but it's all a bit of an experimentation. And place your generator second after you place your cables, because at the end of the day, you're trying to run your cables. You're not necessarily trying to hide your generator perfectly, but you don't want your cables on the outside of the walls. That would be my probably biggest tip. One other quick little tip I can give for generators is that you can actually join generators together. So we'll get in another 2 generators, and we'll get in another couple of straights, because I'm not sure if I've got anything left. you can actually join two generators together. So we've got one generator there. We're going to put a wall in between them because that generator's walled off there. Then we're attaching another generator to the outside here. Now there is a way to do this which is quite difficult. There it is. That's it. Sometimes if you don't place it in the right spot it will demolish, but now you can actually have both generators going. Now we'll confirm that. We'll put I've got some outlets. Let's go for a lamp post just for the sake of this, and I've got to get some fuel, so we'll go to consumables, under G for gasoline because it's not Australian. Where are we? Maybe it's not in under here. What was it under? This is the one thing about this ACM. If you've watched my previous videos, it can be quite hard to find some things. I'm pretty sure it's not under power and crafting. Resources, that's where it'll be. Gasoline, there it is. So we'll get 18 gasoline. Okay, we're going to come up here. I'm going to place in an electrical outlet just there. I'm going to place down my torch, split that gasoline in half, place down my lamp post just there, right there like that. I can't turn it on yet. Put fuel in that, turn it on. Now we'll get up here, we'll turn on. So as you can see, we've got light. I've faced it the wrong way, but we've got light. We'll come down here, turn that on. As you can see, we've got two powered generators, so I can come over, turn this off. Keeps power in the system, turn it back on, turn this off, keeps power in the system. It's just a good way to fail-safe your generators if you're on a high traffic, high PvP server. You can hide two generators next to each other, or they can be a long way away from each other. It doesn't really matter. I don't think you can mid-air snap generators anymore. You used to be able to. I'm just going to try it just for the sake of it. You used to be able to just mid-air snap them to cables, but I don't think it'll work anymore. As you can see, yeah, it's not going to work really at all there. It may work up on this level, but I just generally try and keep them on the same level. So that's probably my biggest tips, is just keeping it as simple as possible. Place your cables first, know where you're going to run your cables before you place your generator. And yeah, that's about it. I hope this helps some people. Thanks for watching. Give me any suggestions if you've got them down the bottom, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.